Narori sir, Harish Yadav ji, and many known faces over here. It was a nice presentation. I saw so many presentation over here. So I have come here within a very short notice, and I am here to protest. The first protest is there is no place for new kind of research in science fiction. I'll tell you something. Last week I was being interviewed for a particular research project or something like that in one of the leading universities, and they said you have a hypothesis, you have a methodology of work and everything, but there are hardly any secondary sources. So their thing is that new research cannot be done. You need to have some kind of secondary material. When research is not done, not has been done previously, if we going to turn the same wheel again and again, there will be so many secondary resources. But sadly, there is no place for innovative resources, innovative researches in the field of academics. I'm really sorry to say that I'm being so blunt. So I guess reading science fiction book, working on science fiction is the only way for the time being, but tides might change. And I like to recall this particular thing when I was in Varanasi for this science fiction conference. So I was allotted a room with the notable science fiction author Zishan Saidji. He even gave me his laptop to present. And they were lying. I saw his books, and then I came across books of Harish Goyalji in science fiction group also. But language was a barrier for me. I'm studying in English. I know my Matribhasha, which is Bangla. And of course, me haru shikhte Marathi, since I am staying in Mumbai, Maharashtra, of course. My Hindi is not that strong. I'm not being proud of it. Hindi, I love to read Hindi, but there was some kind of issues. So I guess translation is the need of the hour. And many people have said so many things about translation. I saw something on Balfont Keji yesterday. He posted something. Even Deep Ghoshji said about translating work. So I was reviewing some of the books in Bangla. And sadly, there is any translation in Hindi or Tamils of this kind of books. And thus the Indian audience are only reading the English version of the books. Now the problem is that when I was a child, there used to come an essay, right? Basic education should be in your mother tongue, or we'd like to say Matribhasha, Bigyan Charcha or something like that. So basically, what is the need of the, just could you give me one minute? Just could you give me the 1 minute? Okay, hello, am I audible? Yeah, am I audible? Yeah. Okay, so that is the thing over here. Let us see what we have in store. And before I'd like to proceed, I would like to ask something. Which is the most published book in the world? Anyone? Which is the most? Could you enable the screen sharing? Anyone? Screen sharing?
I think it's Bible.
Yes. Okay, sir.
Yeah, right.
Great. Yes. Okay. Could you, anyone host, please, enable me to share the screen, please? Yeah, Shinoyji, sadly, yes. They want secondary resources should be there to publish a research paper. Sadly, yes. Could anyone share the screen, please? It is there, sir. Thank you. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, so here it goes. The need to popularize Indian science fiction. Research and everything is okay, but we need to popularize science fiction. That's the first thing. I'm being a bit commercial over here. So here is the thing. So do you know who is this guy? Anyone? Harish Yadavji might have a clue, something like that. He just gave the answer a few minutes ago. Anyone? Who is this guy?
Sorry, I can't.
Okay, anyone? Okay, so the guy, this is Gutenberg, John Gutenberg, who came up with a printing press, and he was very fond of this one. This is in New York State Library. There's the Bible. And anyone knows the language Aramaic, the original language where it was published? Anyone in the group, anyone in the presentation? Does anyone can read Aramaic, the actual language of Bible, the Holy Bible? Anyone? So the answer is Aramaic, the actual language Aramaic. Can anyone read Aramaic? Has anyone read the Bible in Aramaic, the actual language? So basically, all of us have read, those who have read the Holy Bible, that's in English basically, or any other language, Latin or something like that. So basically, translation is the thing which is keeping our, harmony, culture intact. Bhagavad Gita, very few people can read the Sanskritized version. Of course, in India, people can read, but outside they cannot read the Sanskritized version. So that's why we have the English, that's the translation. Am I audible?
Yes, sure. You can continue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. So I guess translation is the need of the hour. Now, I was writing. This is a science magazine. It's published from Delhi. This is the February 2021 issue. So the editor contacted me to write something about Indian science fiction. And they were basically Indian science fiction in English literature, in English, and of course some kind of popularization is the Hindi science fiction, and some aspects of Bangla science fiction also. And when I went, when I did some initial research, language was a barrier for me. So when I went for Marathi science fiction, I took the help of Dr. Ashutosh Javrekar, who is a professor in Bharati Vidyapit, Pune. I took the help of T.G. Shinoy, the eminent critic. So I took his help regarding Tamil science fiction. And of course, and also I took the help of Arvind Mishra ji regarding the Hindi science fiction. And also, since I am from Bangla, I know something of the Bangla science fiction. So basically, what I have seen, there are hardly any translation in other languages about this thing. Some popular novels or popular science fiction which came up in 1980s or early 1990s, they are available in translation in market. And most of the translation are in English, not other Indian languages. Now you need to understand, if you want to popularize science fiction, it should be from the ground level. And the ground level is the children or the teenage one, because my bottle is already filled with English and Bangla and bit of Marathi. So it gets very difficult to learn a new language at this age. Of course, we can always learn. But since children are there, the teenagers are there, and basically, unless and until there are extraordinary situations, they're well equipped with the mother language. It could be Marathi, it could be Hindi, it could be Gujarati. Or most of my students are are from Gujarat and in the Maharashtra also. So they're well versed with this kind of language, but hardly there are any kind of translation of the new age authors. I'll tell you, I'll give you a sneak peek of the new age authors whom you should read from the Bangla, of course. Now, so what kind of problem I faced while writing an article on Indian science fiction in regional languages. So these are the main challenges. You can read this particular article. It is already available in print. It is already available in media, the digital media. I'll share the link if you want to read. Now, the question. So this is a very famous Tamil science fiction. Okay, it was about the android, a robotic dog. So those who are from Tamil Nadu, of course, they have read this thing. Other people from other Indian states like Maharashtra, Bangla, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, have you read this particular book? Anyone? Dr. Balaji, have you read this book?
No.
No. Okay, so it is one of the most famous Tamil science fiction. You should read it. Now, there is an English version of this, and it gets very hard to find the titles of this unless you have an encyclopedia like Shinoy with you, who helps you with, the listing of the books or something like that. It becomes very difficult. So yeah, you should read what's there in Indian state. We are reading Spanish science fiction. We should read some, translation of Spanish science fiction and other science fiction, Japanese, Chinese, these are there. What about the Indian states? If we don't look at पहले घर को संभालो फिर बाहर संभालते हैं. There are so many resources. You can always do new work. What about the work which already exists? Why you are not translating it in Hindi language, in Bangla or something, or in Marathi? So this is a very famous science fiction. Now, this is Bhara Bhagwat. He is a famous science fiction editor and an author and a translator. Now I'll tell you something in the sense of Maharashtra. Jayant Narelekar, Balfort, they are very famous. Now it began in the early, 19 03 people are writing science fiction literature in Marathi. But a time came after 1950 to 1970, people were, trying to amalgamate uh, children literature and science fiction literature into one. Thus, there was a, a coma stage of science fiction literature in Marathi science fiction world. What Bhara Bhagwat did, he translated all the original works of Jules Verne, H.G. Wells into Marathi, and it brought back the culture of science fiction again in Maharashtra. So yes, you can see what is the answer. I am just focusing on the problem. You can see what is the answer. Let us go to the new one. This is Hindi science fiction. This is a Hindi science fiction by Dr. Arvind Mishra ji, which is based on, the Mars, Mangalvasi. You might find an English one, but can you find a Bangla one? Can you find a Marathi one? Unless and until you find Bangla one or the Marathi one, it becomes very difficult. It becomes a challenge. The challenge I faced in challenge in Varanasi, because I couldn't read Hindi properly. Of course, I know the language. So yes, Mangalvasi is a very famous one. Kumbh ke mele mein Mangalvasi. Let's see the new one. Now these are some Bangla science fiction work which have been translated in Hindi. So the first one is in Marathi, science fiction of Professor Shanku Shotyajit Rai, which is hardly a very much science fiction. There is a lot mix of fantasy or something like that. I had a debate with many people, but of course I come to the conclusion it's not entirely science fiction or something like that. Few stories are in science fiction. There's Professor Shanku science fiction in Marathi. This is Ghanadabai Premendra Mitto. These are tall tales, bit of science fiction, bit of literature, bit of fantasy. And then there is science fiction of Professor Shanku in Hindi. So these are very famous Bangla science fiction work which have been translated in other Indian languages. But the problem lies here. Have you heard about these ones? These are the recent science fiction, hard science fiction. There are steampunk science fiction, there are fantasy, adventurous science fiction published by Kalpo Vishwa. And these are the new age authors. I won't say new age, they are very famous. This is Decagon. There is, Ontim Ovijan, and there is, Shorgoloke Dorja Diye. There are hardly any translated work in Hindi. So, what people are missing. I am missing the Tamil one. I am missing the Marathi one. You people are missing, a treasure chest of Bangla science fiction. What is over there? Kalpo Vishwa published all these three. And the Bush, and they were saying in the previous presentation, yeah, they are going to do the translation. Where it is, bring it on, unless it should be for the children. And translation adaptation is not only mean the language, it should be adapted in TV. It should be adapted in TV, it should be adapted in documentary series, and it should be there in the, the merchandise or something like that, Marvel comics, what DC comics do. Unless and until it is popular with the teenage, unless Sherlock Holmes is made for the teenage, adapted for the teenagers or the children, science, I'm sorry to say, science fiction won't be popular. People, researcher on science fiction, writer of science fiction are still looked down upon. The scene needs to change. Do read this thing. Now there is a dystopian work by Soham Go which was published in Mithila Review. So you have read about 1984, which is a dystopian work. You have read about you have read about Brave New World. Have you read this, the new one? Dystopia, what is happening in the border of Pakistan, what is happening in the border of Bangladesh. It's a beautiful. Now, this is an English version. English version can be read. But what about those who are studying in vernacular language? There are so many good students in vernacular language. Why there is no translation? Of course, Songo is bilingual. He writes in Bangla, he writes in English. So I'm fortunate enough to read both the languages. But what about the others? I am missing on. I'm sure there is so many science fiction in Maharashtra. There is so many science fiction in the Hindi belt. Sad. Now there is another option, meme, which I personally find amusing. If you want to popularize science fiction, why not meme? So basically, these are meme created by me. The meme is something like that. It is one of the greatest art of this particular century. In the previous century, it was regarded as, the cinema is regarded as the greatest weapon. Of course, I'm all fan of cinema. Anivarjo is also Devraj Maulik and Mr. Shen. So yeah, these are the thing you are missing out. Now there are science fiction authors like Samit Basu. There are science fiction authors like Sami Ahmed Khan. There are science fiction authors like Rishabh Gur. Their works in English and they are doing path-breaking works. We already know that. But what about I just showed you this? You are missing these things. Believe me, hard science. There is a hard science fiction of Ishwar Gonana Muhammad. I guess. Uh, Ishwarer Gonit, Muhammad Saiful Islam, is has been labeled as the hard science fiction. I'm yet to read. So you're meeting, you are still lying in the, the 90s. You are missing a whole lot of things. The translation, what is the answer? And I think you should, and I'll tell you something, when you are doing research or something, if you take any popular novels, if you take any popular films, the